Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the wandering youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. How you doing today, my friend?
Just wandering around. Just slinking around, just not really by my phone,
Yeah, I know. You made me say hello like 8 times.
Yeah,
so,
at least 8 times.
At least. Hello? Hello? I thought I was like in the abyss or something. But now you're here. We can talk some Big Ten football. I'm a Badger fan, so I'm not real excited about talking about that Badger game. But it is a Big Ten show, and like I told you, I don't have much to say. We'll go over it. But anybody listening to the Go Big show today knows what happened already to Wisconsin, I would imagine. But I'm going to let you take it over like we always do. We're going to go through the AP Top 25, go through the Big Ten games that already happened last weekend, and then we're going to preview. We're going to preview next week's game. So take it away, youngster.
Yeah, I'm going to move through fairly swiftly on some certain things that, can be moved through swiftly on. Bad wording there, but whatever. You get the gist. The national take from the Big Ten this past week, and this is going to be my main thing here, Troy, before we really get into things, was that, what the hell is the Big Ten doing? Like, it looked like crap altogether. Like, yeah, Ohio State beat TCU. That was cool. But otherwise, it was, like, literally just either teams were supposed to beat the crap out of teams they were supposed to. Like, Penn State, Ohio State and Penn State look good. It's like, well, Penn State played Kent State. I mean, they were supposed to kill them, The conference as a whole lost 7 games to unranked out-of-conference teams, which is the worst weekend in Big Ten history. I think there was a stat that all of last year, the conference lost 7 games to unranked out-of-conference teams in the entire season. That just happened this past weekend. And so it's like, wow. It wasn't just like, oh, my God, Wisconsin got upset. They were 3 touchdown favorites. That's crazy for sure. But that happens to, like, almost every conference. One of the top 3 or 4 dogs will be a 2-touchdown favorite, and they'll lose. It is what it is. But it was everything else that went wrong, basically. Again, there were some teams. Michigan beat SMU by 25. Okay, you're supposed to do that. But Rutgers losing by 40 to Kansas, that's just one of them. Maryland losing to Temple by 20. Nebraska losing to Troy. Illinois to South Florida, which they were supposed to, but just another loss to an unranked team. Purdue lost to Missouri. Again, they were supposed to, but another loss to an unranked team. Northwestern loses to Akron. I mean, it's just like, my God. Like, what went right other than Ohio State beating TCU like they were anticipated to, and some teams taking care of their cupcakes? Everyone else just lost, embarrassingly, basically. But so that's my question, I guess, to start before anything is, were we wrong on the Big Ten being the strongest conference? Because we're seeing what, like, the SEC, for example, has in the SEC, and it's like, is this conference really the best in college football? Because to me, at this point, honestly, I'm disappointed in what I thought Wisconsin would be. I'm disappointed in what I thought Michigan would be. I'm disappointed in what I thought Michigan State would be. Penn State looks younger, and I guess younger than I thought they would. Like, yeah, they're talented, but they're just so young in certain spots. Again, they looked good Saturday, but it's just like there's no – Ohio State's really good, and then it's just like they're a question mark with everyone. And even the middle of the conference kind of looks like crap out of conference. I mean, they're losing games that you're not supposed to. So for me, the Big Ten is definitely worse than I thought it was. I was wrong.
Yeah, they're looking very mediocre right now. That's how I'll put it. They're looking mediocre, and you're only going to be as good as your middle teams in my mind. And those middle teams, you look at it, Nebraska, I know Scott Frost has come in there, and he's got to rebuild. But even if he would have kept the same roster from last year, Kevin, how do you lose to Troy? How do you lose to Troy? Because we're going to get to the Wisconsin game, and I'm going to throw this out there. The point spread was what, 23.5?
Something like that. Depends where you look.
Like
there were 3 touchdown favorites, yeah.
So I dabble in some part-time work on the weekend. You know that. And there's a guy that I work with that is big into the betting lines. And he flat out asked me on Saturday, I'm taking Wisconsin. I said, dudes, do not take Wisconsin in the points. No way in the world do you take Wisconsin in the points. He's like, well, they're good. I said, they start slow. They let every team hang around until halftime. Then in the second half, they possess their will and run the ball. That is BYU by over 20. I said, this could be a 1 or 2 score game. And so I wasn't like thinking that they were going to lose to BYU, Kevin. But right. I knew BYU was going to give them a tough game. There's no way they are covering that point spread. Do you think that he heeded my advice?
No, of course not.
Of course not. Of course not. So we're going to get to that game. And like I said, I don't have much to say about it. There's a couple things I want to say, but I was flat out embarrassed by Wisconsin's play, especially at home against an unranked opponent. That's what really irks me. Had this game been at BYU, it might be easier to swallow. It was at Camp Randall.
Yeah.
And you let BYU take it to you. So, but back to your point, I think right now, after 3 weeks, this conference is mediocre at best. You do. You have Ohio State looking really good. You got Penn State. Like you said, they're young. Could they develop? You know, they took care of business on Saturday. They were supposed to. They were supposed to do that. Wisconsin, that new defense, we talked about it. I thought it was good. I knew it wasn't going to be as good as last year. Man, they just got manhandled. I mean, literally. And then you look at Wisconsin's quarterback situation. You know, I'll just go back to that. So there's my couple talking points, kind of let the cat out of the bag. But I think, you know, that was a surprise, Wisconsin losing as a 6th-ranked team to BYU. But I think the biggest surprise to me was Nebraska losing to Troy. Really it was. Because that, to me, Kevin, even though Scott Frost is rebuilding, you're a Big Ten school. You have no business losing to Troy. And, again, I know he's rebuilding, but, man, they were up, what was it, 21-0, Kevin? You and I were texting back and forth. Was it 14-0, 21-0, something like that in that Nebraska game?
Yeah, they were down early. They were without Adrian Martinez, one of my two other.
It still shouldn't matter, youngster.
No, I know. I agree.
Troy.
I agree.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, they looked awful.
Yeah.
I mean, they tried to make a valiant comeback, but it just didn't happen. So take it away again, youngster. I just think the conference is mediocre right now.
Yeah, I'm with you there. One thing with Martinez, Frost still isn't sure if he's going to be back for next week's game. It's just like there's no real talking about it. It's just like, hey, we'll see where he is at game time next week, basically. So I don't know when he's going to come back. No one really knows that. The other thing I wanted to mention, our lock of the week, Rutgers plus 2.5. They lost by 41 to Kansas. If you
we were close on that one.
Yeah, we were very
close on that one. You know, share your thought, youngster. The thought that you shared with me via text message about our lock of the week this year.
Yeah. Last year, if you followed our show, we were 5-0, 6-0 in our Big Ten locks of the week. We started like halfway through the year. We were like 5 or 6-0. Didn't lose against the spread, picking against the spread. This year, we're 0-2. And this Rutgers game, we thought Rutgers was going to win outright. They lost to Kansas football by 41 points. I mean, people thought before the game that, okay, worst Power 5 football program. Probably Kansas. Like their AD wasn't even talking about their coach's status throughout this year. It's just like, I kind of support the other coaches, basically, is what he said, but I'm not guaranteeing anything with our current coach, is basically what he said. That was a couple weeks ago when Kansas lost to an FCS school. Then they just hosted Rutgers and beat them by 40. I mean, if there's an answer for who the worst football team in Power 5 is, it's Rutgers. And we talked about it before the year started that, hey, this team won, 3 Big Ten games a year ago? They were like 3-6. They won like 4 games overall. It's like, hey, maybe Rutgers has taken a little step up. Chris Ash, in his second year, took a little step up. We'll see what he does in year 3. Well, this is what he's doing in year 3. And they're supposed to have this quarterback from this big school in Florida who was a 4-star who chose Rutgers over going to Miami. And he ended up getting yanked in this game for the backup. That's how bad it got. I mean, so I don't know what Rutgers football is going to look like. I don't know how much longer Chris Ash is going to have. He talked about it after the game, that sometimes rebuilds like this, it takes 4, 5, 6 years. And I understand that, but does Chris Ash have 6 years at Rutgers if this is his 3rd? I don't think so, because you don't lose.
Can I jump in here, youngster?
Yeah.
As a former college coach.
Yep.
4, 5, 6 years, he's ludicrous. He's flat out crazy. I'm going to tell you why. I started coaching at a Division III school, and they transitioned to Division II. My plan was 3 years, because the first year it was a wash. And you've heard me talk about that first year getting blown out, because I recruited for D3.
Yeah.
My roster was recruited for D3 in the conference we were in. I was recruiting players that could compete for a conference title in Division III. So that first year, and then I subsequently left and went to a different school. However, my plan, when I went out to recruit that off season or during that season, now I have scholarships. Now I know who I have to play. We were going to be an independent, so we were going to have to play one of the toughest schedules in Division II for the next 2-3 years until we got conference affiliation. So I had to figure out, okay, how do you compete with the big boys?
Yeah.
It's with speed, and there was things I was looking for in my players: speed, smarts, guys that are well conditioned. I mean, there are certain things that I was looking for. But if you think about it, so that first year when they made that move, that recruiting class, I had those freshmen, which are good. They're going to still be there. I'm not just getting rid of them like, oh, you guys aren't D2 players. I had some very good players that would eventually been part of the plan. But that next recruiting class that I didn't see through, like I said, I subsequently went to another school. I went out, though, and I recruited guys, Kevin, that are going to fit in my system to compete in Division II. So that would have been year 2. They would have been freshmen. I would have had the sophomores from the year before. The next year, I would have went on and recruited the same type guys. That would have been the 3rd year. Now I've got a nucleus of guys that are freshmen, sophomores, and some juniors that could have been on the cusp of D2. So that 3rd year should have been the year that we make the major step. And then the 4th year, the first recruiting class for D2 would have been juniors. That would have been the year. That's 4 years, okay? So if he wants to say 4, 5, 6, I can live with 3 or 4. Because even in my rebuild process, had I stayed where I was at, year 3 would have been the telltale, are we going in the right direction?
Yep.
Not year 6. So I don't know where he gets off saying he's got 5 or 6 years. His first recruiting class will be gone. It'll be gone. So what'd you do in the first year? Just say, I got a job. I'm going to recruit whoever I feel like? Did you not have a plan? So to me, Kevin, that is a ludicrous statement. It is a crazy statement. You have guys in college for 4 years. You should be able to go out and recruit in year 1, and by the time they're seniors, you should be competitive. That's how you should be recruiting. Maybe I'm off in left field. I know you never coached at college, Kevin, but am I crazy for thinking that within 4 years, my first and second recruiting classes should be the guys that I want to build a program with? Then I go out and I get really better in years 5, 6, and 7, because now I see what holes do I have. Or am I just crazy? Take it away.
No, you're not. These are just 2 examples that have obviously worked. But Ohio State was around 9-3-ish program before Urban Meyer. The last couple of years before Urban Meyer, in his year 3, he wins a national title. And Alabama was around 9-4, 9-3, 8-4, 8-5. And then Nick Saban gets there. Year 1, they lose to some terrible school, but year 3, he wins a national championship. I mean, by year 3, you've got your core group of guys that you've recruited 2-3 cycles in. That's like, okay, these are my guys. This is my system. They've had years in my system. We should be seeing improvement by year 3. And so, year 5, year 6, I mean, I would hope that year 5, year 6 of your system with your guys would look a lot better than when you took it over. Otherwise, you're obviously not the guy for the job. And if you lose to Kansas by 40, I'm not going to say he should be fired, but something clearly, obviously, is going wrong there. So, I won't say, yeah, this coach should be fired. But, my God, to lose to Kansas by 40 is insane. I'll move on. I'm going to very quickly go through the AP Top 25 here. Alabama stayed at 1. Georgia moved up from 3 to 2. Clemson moved back from 2 to 3. Ohio State had that semi-impressive win. That's kind of how I saw it. I wasn't blown away by Ohio State. There were definitely holes in there, and Ohio State was down by 8 in the third quarter. They weren't playing fantastic the whole game. It's not like they dominated. They won by 12, and they looked good toward the end of the game, but they didn't dominate. They stayed at 4, which kind of surprised me. I thought winning in Texas, basically at TCU, I thought they would have moved up a spot, but they didn't. This is also the AP. It's not the College Football Playoff Committee. It's not the end of the world. Oklahoma 5, LSU 6, Stanford 7, Notre Dame 8, Auburn 9, Washington 10. And it's like, okay, where's another Big Ten team? There's Penn State. Penn State's actually tied with Washington at 10. Excuse me. Penn State's not 11, but they're literally tied with Washington because it's based on a point system and how the AP votes. It's starting to look a little different now that Wisconsin's out of the picture. Wisconsin's down at 18 now. Michigan is staying strong at 19. Michigan State moved up to 24. I got that wrong. Michigan State's 24. They were 25, I think, a week ago. I mean, Ohio State's up there. Penn State's at 10. Wisconsin down to 18. Michigan at 19. Michigan State 24. Iowa's the most in others receiving votes, so they're essentially 26. But I don't know. You've got a group of good teams in here, but they're not special. I think Ohio State has a chance to really be special. That's my overall take there. I'm ready to start recapping some games quickly here, Troy, unless you've got anything to add.
No, Wisconsin's lucky they're not out of the top 25.
Yeah, I wanted to start with. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, a loss to BYU at home. I mean, that's crazy.
That's the game I wanted to start with, Troy. Here's my little take from it. I was surprised that BYU was right there with them physically. And Jonathan Taylor had 26 carries, 117 yards. Wisconsin scored a couple touchdowns on the ground. It might have been all 3. But he had none. Not that really matters. In the end, they got him in the end zone. But 26 carries, 117 yards is good. It's 4.5 yards a carry. But they never really ran it down BYU's throat. They never really had control of the game, which is surprising for an offensive line that has probably maybe 3 first-round picks in the NFL draft. Supposed to be the most talented line at Wisconsin. You're at home. You know, the jump around thing that happens at the end of the third quarter, BYU players were jumping around. They knew they were right there. I mean, they didn't back down whatsoever, and they shouldn't have, obviously, because they were right there with Wisconsin physically, which surprised me. That was the biggest surprise to me. Hornibrook, 18 of 28 for a pick. That's Alex Hornibrook against a decent team. It's a joke. A friend texted me. It's like, yep, Hornibrook's bad. I'm like, yeah, next year they should have a good quarterback. This Mertz kid.
Has your friend ever listened to a show and listened to me talk about Hornibrook?
He knows.
I've been saying this for a year and 3 games now.
I know.
I mean, I'm going to ask you this, Kevin. When did he make a play in that game?
Right. No, never that I remember.
And he needed to.
Yep.
The reason Taylor only averaged 4.5 is because if your quarterback can't make a play, you can cheat in the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4.5 is not bad. But if you watch the game, he was getting by the line at times, and then he had linebackers on him. He was getting contact, a yard at the line of scrimmage. The guys were blocking early, but if you don't have a threat of a quarterback and a guy that can make plays, and to be honest, Kevin, 18 of 28 against BYU.
Right.
My gosh. My gosh. I mean, here's the realistic view now of Wisconsin. All those fans that thought they could go to the national title game, gone.
Yeah.
You're not going to a national title game. Even if you win the rest of your games and win the Big Ten title and the conference championship, you're not going to the national championship. You lost to BYU. You didn't lose to Penn State. You didn't lose to Ohio State. You lost to BYU. So now, whoever the quarterback of the future is, time to play him. Time to play him right now.
Unfortunately, I think he's in high school. That's the issue. He'll be a true freshman next year as long as he sticks with his commitment, which he has for a long time now.
If he watched this game, he's probably licking his chops.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to start as a freshman.
He's got to. I mean, this is like, imagine Ohio State being this way a year ago under J.T. Barrett, and it's like, my God, J.T. Barrett just can't stretch the field. He can't make a play with his arm. And you see Dwayne Haskins, and it's like, yeah, he can make plays with his arm. Last year, Dwayne Haskins should have been Ohio State's quarterback. Really. Seriously. And it's going to be the same type of deal at Wisconsin next year. Hornibrook's going to be a senior. He's going to know the playbook for sure. He's going to be friends with Paul Chryst. And in comes this more talented freshman. He's going to be more talented. Last year, Dwayne Haskins was more talented than J.T. Barrett. Doesn't matter if you're a senior to a freshman. You're just more talented if you're more talented. Doesn't matter. The ceiling is what it is with Wisconsin and Hornibrook. He can't stretch the ball down the field and make plays. It's that simple. So it's harder for this team to beat good teams. And BYU is not even a really good team. They're like average.
Yeah, they're an average team.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's all I got. I mean, you can only go so far with Hornibrook as your quarterback. Ohio State, J.T. Barrett, you can only do so much. There's a reason why they got shut out against Clemson his junior year in the college football semi, because he could not move the ball down the field, like deep down the field, could not threaten Clemson's D-backs. So they could come on up and play the run and stifle it, because that's Clemson. They match Ohio State athletically. And if BYU is not getting completely pushed over, then this can happen to Wisconsin. To me, the freshman has to start next year, as long as he's there.
Yeah, and, I want to turn over to the other side of the ball. I mean, you found the holes, you found the inexperience in this game, and, give credit to BYU. The things that were working in the first half, even though Wisconsin came out, I mean, BYU answered with a touchdown. And I give credit to BYU for doing the things that they knew they could do against that Badger defense. I don't know if they scrapped the game plan, but they found some plays that worked. And if you look at that game, Kevin, it was almost like deja vu in the plays that were gaining yards. And they're like, well, if you're not going to be able to stop it, we're just going to keep doing it. And so Paul Chryst and his defensive coordinator made really no adjustments, at least that I could see in that game. Maybe they just thought, eventually our big burly offensive line and Jonathan Taylor will get going. The problem is you didn't have Hornibrook doing anything. And I'm really surprised and again, I'm not a college football coach, and I don't even fake to play one on the radio. I have no business being a coach. But you would think that teams are going to try to shut down your running attack. And they're in their mindset, Kevin. I know these linemen are great, but you are a competitor. It doesn't matter if it's David versus Goliath. If you have a mindset that I'm going to beat my guy, I'm going to give 100%. If I get given 100%, so be it. That's the way the world will roll. BYU wanted to play. They were up to the challenge. They were. But I don't understand, and again, I just sat here and ripped Hornibrook a new one. But you know that teams are going to try to stop the run. They're going to load the box. And I know they did some passing early, but you've got to open this game up early. You've got to get them out of the box early. And if you're not having success, they just sit in the box. But Paul Chryst didn't even attempt to get guys out of the box. I mean, you've got to try to open it up. I mean, I would have thought, and I was sitting there watching the game, first play would have been an awesome time. Play action to Jonathan Taylor and try to go semi-deep. You can't go deep with Hornibrook, but go semi-deep. Do a post pattern over the middle.
Yeah. Troy, the first drive of Sunday Night Football for the NFL, Dallas knew what the Giants wanted to do. It was force Dak to make plays. And in the first drive, they went play action and threw a bomb to Tavon Austin, who took it 70 yards for a touchdown.
Bingo!
That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. That opens things up a little bit.
Yeah, and again, Hornibrook can't toss the ball 50 yards in the air.
Sure.
So running in, run a quick slant, do something to say, look, we can at least pass. You're going to have to at least have enough common sense to put guys on the outside, or we will try to pass it on you.
Yeah.
But you know what? Here's what I took from that game, Kevin. BYU did not respect Alex Hornibrook. They didn't have to. And I don't understand, because guess what? Every game that Paul Chryst and Wisconsin play now is going to be the same thing. You want Jonathan Taylor to run it 25 times for 140 yards? Fine, we'll let him do that. We're going to make Hornibrook beat us. And so as the game wears on, it's going to get tougher and tougher because they're stopping the run. And like you said, they didn't really stop the run. He still averaged nearly 5 yards. But when it mattered, couldn't get it going. You didn't see the big burst. You didn't see the long, jaunting runs that give him 200 yards for a day. He had to work for every one of those 100-plus yards. And that's what BYU wanted to do, and Hornibrook couldn't beat him. Let's move on. I know we're kind of under a time constraint today, so let's just move on, because I could sit here and hem and haw for the next 40 minutes.
Yeah. Penn State hosted Kent State. Again, Penn State won 63-10. Okay, you're supposed to. Trace McSorley had 5 touchdowns. That's that. I'll let you interrupt when you feel like it, Troy. Feel like you don't have much here. Michigan hosted SMU. Michigan won 45-20. Shea Patterson looked good. It's SMU. All 3 of his touchdowns went to Donovan Peoples-Jones. I wanted to mention that. He's super talented. I think they could have a pretty special connection this year. At some point, obviously, it showed here against SMU. Rutgers at Kansas. I already talked about what I wanted to talk about here. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. It was sad watching the game, seeing that Kansas was obviously better. I mean, when Kansas football is obviously better than you, that's you want to talk about sad. I mean, it doesn't get much more worse than that. That's. I
got just so you know, I got nothing to add.
Yeah, Indiana hosted Ball State. Indiana was one of the teams that did what they're supposed to. They won by 28 points. Wanted to mention this too. Freshman running back Stevie Scott, talked about him a week ago. He had like 200 on the ground. This game, 18 carries, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's doing well. They may have found their running back for the next few years with Scott. So he's doing good. And I've noticed over even last year as a freshman, quarterback Peyton Ramsey putting up numbers, completing a high percentage of passes. Again, it's Ball State, but that's okay. They beat Ball State. Maryland couldn't beat Temple. Nebraska couldn't beat Troy. Northwestern couldn't beat Akron. So Indiana beating Ball State, it's like, yeah, you're supposed to. But, okay, at least you're doing it. You're not falling on your face. Indiana's 3-0 right now. They beat Ball State, Virginia, and FIU. It's not – I've heard of all those schools, at least. They're winning games they probably are supposed to. That's fine. Good. They're doing well. So I think that to just gloss over it and say, yeah, well, they should have won. Well, okay, but that's the issue with the Big Ten right now, is that their teams aren't winning games they're supposed to. So hats off to Indiana for being 3-0 and for looking good in games they should. So I just wanted to mention that. You have anything on that, Troy?
No, just this Ramsey kid. I mean, Indiana finally has a threat of a quarterback. I mean, will he be an all Big Ten player or an All American? Probably not. But will he be a competent quarterback that can go in there? Yeah, I'll tell you right now, I'll trade Hornibrook for him right now.
I was going to say, yeah.
And you know what? That's kind of how I'm comparing the other quarterbacks against every other Big Ten school right now. And we talked about this. If I had to rank the quarterbacks, Hornibrook would be like 10th in the conference.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to lead this team to the promised land. Some people thought, literally people, Kevin, thought that the Badgers could go to the national championship. And I wasn't one of them.
Some people pick them to win. Like, there are people out there, like analysts, not Joe, my neighbor. There were analysts that said, yeah, I'm picking Wisconsin to win the whole thing. Not a ton, but it was not unpopular to see Wisconsin in a college football playoff, and I know for sure there was at least one that had them winning the whole thing. So expectations were high, for sure.
Yeah, to circle back, though, this Ramsey kid, we talk about quarterback play, and if you're the quarterback at Indiana, what I'm finding right now early in the season, Kevin, like you said, yeah, they're supposed to win. Okay, fine. Here's what I'm finding with Indiana, though. We've talked about this a million times. They're starting to form an identity. They're starting to form, this is the type of football that Indiana's going to play. We've got a good running back. We're going to try to run the ball. And when we can run the ball, we've got a quarterback that is capable of completing play action, and a quarterback that's going to protect the ball. A quarterback that can make a play every once in a while, and he's not going to turn it over. What's wrong with that identity? If it gets you 3-0 in the non-conference against your cupcakes, fine. Will Indiana do much in the Big Ten? Probably not. But they're forming an identity, Kevin, and we've talked about this. Teams need an identity. And right now, I've got to circle back, being a Badger fan. What is Wisconsin's identity? We've got a big, burly offensive line, so we're going to run Jonathan Taylor. Great. That's one-dimensional in my mind, and you just shut that down, you win.
Right.
There you go. Carry on.
Maryland hosted Temple, so Maryland's supposed to win the game, except they lost by 21 points. Again, hats off to Indiana. Their quarterbacks, Maryland had two of them playing this game, mostly Kasim Hill, who is their starter. On average per attempt, they averaged 3 yards per attempt. That's absolutely atrocious. Both the guys threw a pick.
So here's a quarterback duo I wouldn't trade Hornibrook for.
And Kasim Hill has looked decent in certain games. This was not one of them, and so it just goes to the point that he's not a consistently good quarterback. That's what I take from it, to be honest.
I got nothing to take from it. You lost to Temple again, and that's kind of the theme of our show. Big Ten teams losing to teams they shouldn't lose to.
Yep.
I mean, how many games is Temple going to win this year? 3, 4?
Hopefully it's not 1.
Oh, wouldn't that be a kick in the you-know-what?
Yeah.
And I'll say, Kevin, as we host this show and we go through and we've been on the Big Ten saying, yeah, we think they're the best conference in America.
Yeah.
And again, you brought it up, disappointing to see teams like this to go out and maybe it goes back to my point. You're playing cupcakes. You got young kids, and as a coach, it's hard to get them motivated. Maybe a lot of these games, including Wisconsin, that the players I'll say it this way, and I'll come out and say it. Maybe they went through the motions all week preparing,
right?
Thinking all we got to do. We're the Big Ten. We're Maryland. We're Wisconsin. We're Northwest.
Wisconsin went to BYU last year and won 40-6. So how hyped do you think Wisconsin was getting ready for this game at home? We're at home. We're the number 6 team in the country. We killed you a year ago. Of course we're going to kill you again. That's how I would have thought.
And so that's my point. And I did. I just said it. Maybe that's what happened with all these schools. You know, and even like a Northwestern, Kevin, against an Akron. Oh, we're playing Akron. We play in the Big Ten. We're Northwestern. We're going to go to a bowl game this year. You know, we'll just show up and play. You have to remember you're dealing with kids, immature kids. Some are mature. Not all of them are immature. But, you know, think about this, Kevin. You are a basketball player, so we like to relate things to our days playing, and I think the fans can relate to it too, because a lot of them were probably in the same shoes as us. Played some competitive sports. Maybe not, you know, not a lot of us had a chance to play pro. You get with your, like, position people, Kevin. For example, when I played soccer, so the defense does their drills. And you have a leader of your team. You know, and I can kind of remember this as a soccer player in high school, a young soccer player, and seniors not necessarily screwing around, but you see the lack of effort in practice before, I'm air quoting, an easy game.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, I mean, as a young kid, if I'm vying for playing time, but I knew my role on the team. I was coming off the bench. I was a bench player. So all of a sudden, these seniors that are starters, they're kind of going 50%. If I go 100%, I can't really show them up because, you know, that wouldn't be right. And so now I've participated in practice at 50% leading up to this game, and now my number gets called. I go in, and I'm not fully prepared. You know, you think about that. So you have a group of offensive linemen, and good ones at that. You know, Outland Trophy candidates, number 1 draft picks in the NFL. They're out there going through the motions in practice. Well, you know, his anchor mate on the line might be doing the same thing. Oh, Joe Blow over here is not going to, yeah, you're right, it's BYU. You know, hey, it is what it is. So all of a sudden you get a group of guys that have all fallen into this mentality. Not just one. The whole, like, position group. You know, think back, Kevin, like I said, to your days playing basketball when you had that so-called cupcake game, and maybe, you know, you and a couple of your shooting guards were out there firing away three-pointers, and you're just kind of being lackadaisical, right? Because you're like, oh, yeah, we're playing the down the river under the Benton team that hasn't won a game in 2 years. We'll just show up and play. Yeah, I'll toss this up. Oh, I banked it off the backboard for a 3. Who cares? Oh, air ball, who cares? I'll just throw another one up. I think you get my point here, Kevin.
Yeah. No, absolutely. When it came to playoff games, I remember those and the intensity with those, and there was no going into it like, I know I'm more talented. There wasn't that. Especially playing like rec league basketball. I mean, that was just, it's like you would know, like 8 weeks into the season, my team's 7-1. We're playing a team that's 1-7, and we watch these teams play, and it's like, yeah, we're going to win by 30. Was my intensity there throughout practices, let alone even going into the game? It wasn't. It wasn't 100%. It wasn't at all. Playoffs, different story. Going against good teams that I knew were good, different story. 100% admittance there. So does it shock me what you just said for the last 5 minutes? Absolutely not. I guarantee it happens for sure. Maryland scored off of a pick six and a block punt. That's how they scored their 14 points against Temple. I mean, it wasn't even close. Terrible. Moving on, Nebraska hosted Troy. We talked about this. The backup statistically did fine. I wanted to mention this too, and people are in love with Scott Frost, and I think he's going to turn the program around. But I want to mention this. In week 1, they had a lead, and for whatever reason, he's known for an up-tempo offense. And in week 1 against Colorado, or week 2, I guess technically, they played Colorado, and they had the lead with like 3 minutes left, and they were still snapping the ball with like 20 seconds on the play clock, 25 seconds on the play clock. The announcers were even like, oh, what are you doing? Like, slow down. You've got 3 minutes left in the game. You have the lead. You're driving. Just slow down. There's no need to go fast. You just need the clock to hit 0. and they kept playing pretty fast. That's a coach thing. It's not a player thing. Coach tells you to snap the ball with 2 seconds left. You snap the ball with 2 seconds left. He obviously didn't, because it happened multiple times. That was against Colorado, and against Troy, the top 2 running backs averaged 5.6 yards a carry. They only got 14 carries each. Like one averaged 6 yards a carry, one averaged 4. 6.6, 4.6. I did the math, and there you go, 5.6 average. They both had 14 carries. Why are you not running the ball more if you're controlling the game on the ground? You're having success on the ground. So run the ball more. I don't understand that, and I definitely didn't understand Colorado. They should have won that game. So I'm not going to say they lost to Troy because of Scott Frost, but to me, they should have beaten Colorado, and Scott Frost screwed up by not slowing that game down at the end. I want to also give him a positive here. He didn't play Adrian Martinez, who could have played in the game, it seems like, but it's Troy. It's a freshman quarterback. This is my future. I'm not risking him to play against Troy. And we mentioned that a week ago. You did, Troy, that it's like, do I play my future quarterback here when he's at 75%? No. Because long-term, what's Nebraska going to do this year? Win a title? No. So we want to preserve our guy who's going to be putting up huge numbers and leading our offense for the next 2-3 years. So I back that move.
I would have even made that comment, youngster, if they were playing Penn State.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a young kid. He's a young kid. He's the future of Nebraska football. You only play him when he's 100%. That's all I got. I'm looking at the clock, so I'm going to keep my comments short and sweet.
Yeah, I'm going to move on here quickly with the rest of these games. Minnesota, Miami of Ohio. Minnesota won 26-3. They should have. Bryce Williams, the running back who stepped in for Rodney Smith, who's out for the year, seeking a 6th year of eligibility. Bryce Williams ran it 33 times for 141 yards. That's we know what Penn State. We know what Minnesota wants to do. They obviously want to run the football. Wide receiver also had 3 touchdowns in this game. Tyler Johnson, good for him. But PJ Fleck, again, this Minnesota team is just getting it done. And I mentioned it week 1 when they beat some terrible school. I don't care if it's a terrible school. You can look good doing it. That's something, because Michigan State wasn't looking good against Utah State. And this week, 7 teams didn't look good against unranked teams. So Minnesota's doing what they need to do. And even without their top tailback, still doing what they need to do. They still beat Fresno State a week ago. I like this Minnesota team. I like them. I don't love them. I keep saying it every single week. They're not going to compete for a Big Ten title, but I like them. I like what they're doing. I'll say that much. Illinois hosted South Florida. They were projected to lose by 10 points according to Vegas. They only lost by 6. They were up 19-7 going into the fourth quarter. They just didn't close. They lost the fourth quarter 18-0. The Mike Epstein kid, the running back, who we mentioned when he was healthy a couple years ago, and then he missed a bunch of games a year ago. He's talented. He looks good in this game. Freshman quarterback MJ Rivers looked decent in this game. In the end, they just lost to a team that's realistically more talented, but it seems like they should have won the game because they were up by 12 in the fourth quarter. They just let it go. So that was unfortunate. I thought the Big Ten was going to at least get that upset.
You wonder, Kevin, if that loss had anything to do with the young kids playing.
Yeah.
You mentioned it last week, Illinois playing all these freshmen.
Yeah.
You know, they've got to learn how to win. And Illinois doesn't win a lot. And so you get put in a situation, will they learn from it? Yeah, but, I mean, you talk about Lovie Smith trying to rebuild a program. How long are they going to give them, we'll learn from a loss?
Right.
I mean, it's not going to be a long leash in my book, especially if you mentioned it. What are you doing recruiting? Are you just waving the white flag on last year's class saying, oh, these guys – and I understand you go to recruit better guys, but you would think that if you're building a program and you played a ton of freshmen last year, that these guys would be able to step in and play. I mean, I guess if you're recruiting and they're better, then good for you, Lovie Smith. But they've got to learn how to win. That's
right.
all I got.
Purdue hosted Missouri. Missouri, again, was supposed to win this game. Purdue lost 40-37. Their defense, obviously, was the issue. They lost on a last-second field goal. But one of their quarterbacks, Elijah Sindelar, again, Purdue plays two quarterbacks. Elijah Sindelar is one of them. He was out for this game with an injury. Okay, so the second guy gets all the reps. Okay, he did. He had the single-game record for the most passing yards in Purdue history. And there have been a couple really good quarterbacks to go to Purdue and have success. 39 of 55, 572 yards, 3 touchdowns against Missouri, who's not bad. So this David Bloff guy, who is one of your 2 starters, literally, he maybe should be the starter now? Or are you going to go back to your other guy and split reps? You didn't lose this game because of your offense. You scored 37 points on an SEC team. The defense was the issue. So to give Bluff 14 attempts and to give Sindelar 15 attempts, that's not going to get it done. We've seen that over the last year and a couple games. So maybe we've found our answer here. That's
we'll find out next week.
Yeah, because I don't know how. I don't know. Like you said, we'll find out next week. But amazing when one guy gets all the reps, he does super well. I don't know. Iowa hosted Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa was an FCS school. Iowa looked good, as they were supposed to. Nothing really to say here. The offense finally got going against it was against an FCS school. Northwestern hosted Akron. You would think Northwestern would win the game. They didn't. They won 21, or they were leading 21-3 at halftime, and then it all went to crap. The big thing here to me, Clayton Thorson finally played well, the quarterback. He actually played well. Again, they scored 34 points. Larkin, the new running back, he played well. But again, defensively, you gave up 36 points in the second half. I don't understand what. Yeah, to Akron. So Northwestern is nowhere near what we thought Northwestern would be this year. I thought Northwestern was 8-9 win team probably, but you're losing to Akron, giving up 39 points. Their defense is not right. And to Purdue's 2 quarterback system, they scored in the 30s too. Week 1, Northwestern has not looked good, and they scored 7 points against Duke. So they're looking like crap. Ohio State, TCU. For me, I could talk about this game for an hour, but again, like I mentioned before, they were down 21-13 in the third quarter. They weren't necessarily looking fantastic offensively, obviously. 13 points going into the third quarter, and then there was a 4-minute stretch where they dominated. And that was without Nick Bosa, who a lot of people think is, a top 5 pick in next year's draft. But their defensive line just completely took over the game during this 4-minute stretch, and it led to touchdowns defensively. It led to touchdowns offensively, obviously. But scoring 20 points in 4 minutes, that's going to change the tide of a game. Obviously it did. Anytime you can score 20 points in 4 minutes, that's impressive. And that's going to change the momentum of the game. That's going to change play calling. That's going to change how you play. That's what happened. I mean, the game just completely flipped in 4 minutes because Ohio State dominated it. Dwayne Haskins, 24-38, 344 yards, 2 touchdowns. He played well. He finally went against a real defense. He finally got knocked around a bit. It was good to see. It was good to see him play well against a good defense, a good team. That's a legitimate top 15 team. They only moved back to 17 for a reason. TCU was right there. But it was good to see Ohio State get tested. It was good to see him score 40 points at TCU, basically. The defensive line is just it's that talented. The rest of the defense, though, that's kind of the issue. And I said it before that the offense is ahead of the defense here. And the linebackers are probably as bad as I've ever seen at Ohio State. Not to say that they're bad, but they're always great. And this linebacker core is not great. right now at Ohio State, and the D-backs are really young. So it's kind of like a Penn State thing, except they've got a D-line that's absurd. And then the offense is as good as it's ever been to me. So this team in college football, if you've got an elite offense and you can get a real pass rush, I mean, they can beat anyone to me. And for me, I mean, TCU, the way they looked anyway, to me, they looked as good as any other Big Ten team that Ohio State will play. That's how I saw it. In terms of speed and physicality, and they were hungry. They were looking to win. They were up by 8 in the third quarter for a reason. I came away impressed with TCU, and to look at Penn State, to look at Wisconsin, to look at Michigan, Michigan State, Iowa, I'm not going to say any of those teams are better than TCU. I wouldn't, really. So I was impressed with Ohio State to get through a tough team here in TCU in Texas. I liked it. I liked that they got tested. They obviously didn't blow them out, but they got tested. I think they needed it. And Haskins ended up playing well, which is kind of the key to me.
Yeah, they went out. What they did, Kevin, is they were ready to play the game, and they went out and did what championship teams do. They went out and played a game against a good team. That's the bottom line. And when you look, like you said, you look at it, it comes down to quarterback play. There's two things that we've talked about, not only on this show, on our Saturday radio shows, we talk about it too when we're talking football. How do you win football games? You have good quarterback play, and you win in the trenches on the defensive side of the ball. And what did you just say that Ohio State is looking really good at right now? Quarterback play and defensive line. That's how you win football games. You control the line of scrimmage, and you have good. I'm not even going to say you have to have great quarterback play. Good quarterback play.
Yeah.
If you have good quarterback play and dominate in the trenches, you're going to win more times than you lose.
Yep.
That's the bottom line. So Ohio State, Kevin, you said it all year. Yeah, they look good right now. They look really good. So, where their ranking is, I'm with you. They beat a ranked team. They didn't play some cupcake team. They deserve to move up at least one spot in the rankings. But again, you know me, I'm not you don't want to get me started on the AP poll. You don't want to get me started on that. So, it was a good win. Ohio State's doing what they need to do. They've got the recipe to do it. They're going to control you in the trenches, and they got really good quarterback play. It makes them a tough team, and it makes them a national championship contender. That's all I got.
Yeah, 100% agree there. If they play Alabama in the title game, that's my expectation, because Alabama looks better than anyone else, and Ohio State, to me, they're dangerous for a college football team, and exactly what we just mentioned, the D-line and offensively. That's it for week 3. Luckily, we can take week 3 and put it behind us, outside of Ohio State fans and Penn State fans, basically. But week 4, I've got a little more time here, Troy. Illinois hosting Penn State on a Friday. We're finally here in Big Ten action. So there are, what is it?
It's 3? About doggone time.
Yeah, there are 2 games that are not 2 Big Ten teams going against each other, but maybe, hopefully, if we're extremely lucky, we might get a special guest on next week's show based on one of these games that I'm about to mention. But I will do my best to make that happen. Not going to make any promises, but I'll do my best to make that happen. A little foreshadowing here. But, yeah, we've got 5 matchups featuring Big Ten opponents against each other.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited for it. Finally. And you know what, Kevin? We go back to this week. Maybe the teams were looking ahead to their conference play. I mean, maybe they were. There's so many variables, and you don't know what goes through a 19-year-old through his head, or a 20-year-old. You're looking at a cupcake game, and next week we've got conference play starts. So, maybe that's it. But let's roll through these games. Let's see if we have a lock anywhere. And, if we lock this in, folks, if you've listened this long into the show, if we lock it in, go against us. Go against us. I don't see us getting off Schneid anytime soon, Kevin.
No, we're terrible at this. We're 0-2 so far. So to move into week 4, Illinois hosts Penn State. Finally, here we are, Troy, Big Ten football. Illinois, Penn State on a Friday night. People have their issues with that, but I won't talk about it. Penn State's favored by 28 points, traveling on the road to a very tough environment in Illinois to play a very hard-nosed Lovie Smith team, Troy. Penn State's favored by 28 points. And there was a little sarcasm there for those that don't know, but Penn State should win the game by about 4 touchdowns. I'm not locking anything in, barring a miracle, which certainly can happen, but Penn State should win the game.
Yeah, Penn State's going to win, but on the road, giving away 28 points, I would not lock that in. I guess that's not a lock of the week, really. I don't know. We're just saying Penn State. We're saying Penn State's going to win. It's just hard to give 28 points on the road.
Yeah,
that's like going into somebody's house and stealing all their food. I mean, stealing all of it, not just like a cookie. You got to steal all of it. You go in there and it's gonna be a fight to get that one cookie, and you might get away with 1 or 2, but you're not taking all my cookies from my house. So there's my little analogy for the day.
Yeah, I like that. Michigan hosts Nebraska. I'm not touching this game. I don't care what the spread was before I looked it up. I'm not touching it because I don't know if Adrian Martinez is playing or not. It makes that much of a difference. Michigan's at home against Nebraska. Michigan's favored by 18.5. Okay. If Martinez doesn't play, could Michigan win by 3 touchdowns? Absolutely. If Martinez plays and gets hurt again or throws a pick and, not playing at 100%, they could still win by 21 points. I could also see Nebraska keeping the game extremely close if they have their quarterback ready to roll and their offense is ready to roll against Michigan, who hasn't been dominant. So I don't care what the spread on this game would have been. I expect Michigan to win at home. I know that much. But 18.5, Nebraska couldn't beat Troy. So can Michigan win by 3 touchdowns? I think it's possible. I'm not locking anything in. Wolverines will win the game.
Well, Kevin, I think this is right now you're seeing the line. I would have liked to see the line if Nebraska would have won. I don't think it would have been 18.5.
I agree.
I think the line would have been a little more, probably around 12, 13.
Right.
Right under 2 touchdowns. But I think you're seeing 18.5 because Nebraska lost to Troy. And Kevin, that kids are proud, coaches are proud. Nebraska is going to come out with some fight. They're not going to lay down going to Ann Arbor. They're embarrassed, literally embarrassed, and I guarantee that's the theme of the week. Scott Frost is drilling that into. Well, maybe not. I know some coaches that say let's just put this behind us and move forward.
Yeah,
I've had other coaches that an embarrassing loss. That's all you heard about for 5 days, 6 days till the next game. You hear it from coaches. Are you going to let this happen again? You guys are not that good. Are you going to let it happen again? And if that's what coaches do to motivate, that's what they do. Like I said, I've had both type coaches that have brushed it under a rug, said, hey, I don't even want you guys thinking about how poorly you played. We've got to get better. We're going to get better, so let's move on. And I've had other coaches, they just drilled in your head that you suck. So, I'm done. But Michigan should win.
Yeah. Agreed there. Purdue hosts Boston College. Boston College is perfect so far in the season. Boston College has looked good. It's one of the national college football stories out there. But Boston College, they're ranked like 24th, 25th, something like that. First time in a while they've been ranked. But Purdue hosting Boston College. Purdue's underdogs by 6.5. I have no idea what to make of their quarterback situation going forward. So if I knew that Bluff was playing the whole time, and at home, and a chance to be the top 25 team, I almost like them to cover the spread, but I don't know what's going to happen. If you play 2 quarterbacks, Boston College will win by 7 points. So I'm not locking anything in. I'll play it safe and say Boston College wins, but say this: if Bluff takes all the snaps and throws all the passes, then I would expect Purdue to cover the spread there. I just don't know. So I'll be safe and say Boston College wins, by 7-10 points.
You millennials are always safe. You're always safe. But you make a very valid point.
Okay.
Could Purdue, as poorly as Purdue has played, could they win this game against a Boston College team that has actually played very well here early in the season? You hit it right on the head. One quarterback, yeah, maybe Purdue has a chance at home. The problem I have with Purdue, their defense. But we saw last week that Purdue offensively can put up yards, can put up points. So could they do that against Boston College and get into a shootout? Yeah, because with this Purdue defense, Kevin, this year, they're going to have to win shootout games, and that's going to be probably not very good when you get into the Big Ten. When you get into Big Ten play, playing a Wisconsin, playing an Ohio State, those type teams, it's going to be hard to get into a running gun game. But I think if you're Purdue, you got to find out what is our identity. We got a crappy defense, but we got an offense that can score points when we have one quarterback. When they have two quarterbacks, not so good. So like you, I don't know which way to go on this. This is actually one game. You mentioned it, the Michigan game. You're not going to touch it? I'm not touching this one. I need to know what's going to happen at quarterback.
Yep.
Because it's a tale of two scenarios. If they go prepare one quarterback to play against Boston College after he just tossed 570 yards, I think Purdue covers the spread. If they go back to, we like this two quarterbacks, it's so nice and comfy to have two quarterbacks play. Oh, my gosh. Learn. This quarterback's not like he's a crappy quarterback.
Right.
He just tossed the ball around. He made Missouri look bad. So go with it. But I'm not touching this. I'm not even picking this one, Kevin.
Fair enough. Rutgers hosts Buffalo. We know Buffalo's head coach, oddly enough, on this show. So Buffalo is going to want to run the ball. I know that much. The motto of Buffalo's head coach is pound the rock. So he wants to run the ball. And Rutgers couldn't stop Kansas. So I expect Buffalo to win. Rutgers is underdogs by 6 points here, which seems low. But I don't know. I want to take Buffalo because I think they'll win by at least a touchdown. At the same time, Rutgers is at home. You just got embarrassed. You're not going to be overmatched talent-wise, I don't think. But Buffalo knows what they want to do. And Lance Leipold is going to know Rutgers in the Northeast and the Big Ten. And so I'm very close to taking Buffalo on the points here. But, I think Buffalo wins the game. I'll leave it at that.
No, I'm with you. Buffalo wins. What's the spread? Rutgers is giving 2 or they're taking 2?
They're +6. Rutgers is supposed to lose by 6.
That's tough.
Mm-hmm.
The line is tough. I like Buffalo to win the game.
Yeah.
But it'll be a close one. 6 is too many for me. I can't. If I was betting, I would take Rutgers in the points. But I think Buffalo is going to win the game. It's funny you bring this up, Kevin, because you're talking to two sides of the spectrum here, right? So Rutgers coach thinks it's going to take, 4, 5, 6 years to rebuild a program. I wonder if Coach Leipold thought it was going to take 6 years to rebuild Buffalo.
Right.
I talked to him. I had him on my Red Light Sports Ramble show 3 times. Great guy. And you talked to him. For those listening in the first time, Coach Leipold coached at the school Kevin and I both attended. This is how Kevin and I actually hooked up and started talking to each other. when I talk to him, Kevin, this guy is all business. I would guarantee if I talk to him today, and the funny thing is, he responds to me. I haven't talked to him in about a year, but I can send him a direct message on Twitter, and he'll respond to me. If I sent him a direct message that said, "Hey, Coach, is it going to take you 6 years to rebuild Buffalo?" he would probably send back LOL in his message. There's no way he's thinking it's taken 6 years to rebuild a program. I had to throw it out there because that still sticks in my brain, Kevin, that you even said that. But I like Buffalo. I like Buffalo to win the game. I can't take Buffalo and the points though. But I'm going Buffalo.
I want to. I really want to. I'll leave it at that. I want to. Hopefully we can get him on the show next week. That would be awesome. I will certainly be reaching out. Maryland hosts Minnesota. Maryland is favored by 3. Maryland just lost to Temple by 21 points. They didn't score an offensive touchdown. Minnesota, I've said to this point, has looked pretty good. That being said, Maryland's at home. Maryland beat Texas at home. So can Maryland beat Minnesota at home? I don't think Minnesota is so much more talented than Texas that it's that much of a ridiculous thing. Maryland is just inconsistent. That's how I see them. Minnesota has been consistent to this point. If Minnesota was at home, and Vegas says this, basically with a 3-point spread, that Minnesota would probably win the game. It's kind of a pick 'em. But typically home field advantage, 3-4 points. So Maryland's favored by 3. They're at home. I like Minnesota more than I like Maryland. I'll say that much. Maryland's just too inconsistent for me. I would take Minnesota to win the game. Am I willing to lock it? I guess I'll wait and hear you talk, Troy. But maybe that's where we've gone wrong, is that we haven't both been 100% decisive on these locks. So maybe this will be the week that we turn around if we do lock a game. I think Minnesota wins the game. I do. But so I guess I would take Minnesota in the points because Maryland is favored to win by 3. I'll leave it at that. You there, Troy?
Oh, yeah, I was going off with the mute on. You know, I always mute because sometimes I can interrupt you when you got really good points. So Maryland's favored at home by 3 in a pick'em game. Minnesota to this point has played much more consistent than Maryland. So my only issue here, my only concern, Maryland coming off an embarrassing loss.
Yep.
But I also look at Maryland, and I think Minnesota is way more talented than Maryland. However, I also look at who Minnesota has played. I know they played Fresno State, and that's a good program. And they went to Fresno and played well. There's some concerns that I have, but this would be a game where I really would say, you know what? If Minnesota plays to their capability, they should win by double digits. Minnesota should be able to run all over this Maryland defense that's pretty poor.
Yeah.
And this is one of those games where I think Minnesota could run the ball like 35 times and pass it 10.
Yep.
Literally. And win the game like 28-14 or 28-17. Because I believe Minnesota, you mentioned it, they're building an identity of what they want to do. Again, another concern I have, though, is what if Maryland stacks the box? Can Minnesota make a play at the quarterback position? Not 100% sold on that. Not 100% sold. But I am sold on the fact that I think Minnesota's a better team. And so here's what I'm going to do, Kevin. I'm going to tell you, I would lock it because I think Minnesota wins the game. Maryland's defense is poor. And if Minnesota can run the ball and control the clock, they might be able to score every time that they get on the field. It's hard to do that. I mean, Minnesota does not have an elite offense. But so far, early on, Minnesota's identity is similar, and I've said this, I said it in the preview show, very similar to Wisconsin. They're going to build and get a great offensive line, and they're going to put a back in there that's just going to barrel you over. I think Minnesota goes to Maryland and wins. So I would lock this one because you've got Maryland favored at home because it's a pick'em game. So you've got Minnesota plus you've got 3 points to play with. Yeah, I'm locking Minnesota, youngster. I don't know if you want to lock it with me to make it an official lock of the week. But if you do, that means Maryland's going to win.
Yeah, so you just heard it. Maryland's going to win the game because I'm going to lock it with you, Troy. I think Minnesota wins as well. You think they win? We're catching points on it, so we're going with it. It's our go big or go home lock of the week. So
here we go. Here we go. Minnesota's going to poo the bed, just like last year when I said they play tough at home, and then they couldn't win at home. Oh, my, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Okay, there you have it, folks. It's official now. We can't take it back. Lock of the week.
We're going to go home.
What else we got, youngster? I know you've got some other commitments, so let's breeze through a couple more games.
Here's a really tough one. Ohio State at home against Tulane. By the way, I was looking at Tulane for a second, and I don't know if you checked out their new mascot logo, whatever the heck it is, but it looks really cool. It's like literally this guy in a wave. It's with a sword. It's very weird, but it looked very cool. I always liked Tulane because of their logo that they've had with the wave thing. But on another note, Ohio State again at home against Tulane. Ohio State's favored by 35.5. The last time they were favored by 35.5 was against Rutgers. They won by 49 points. They should beat Tulane by 49 points as well. We just don't know, will Ohio State starters stay in until the fourth quarter and make this, a 42-point win, or will they only win by 35? That's kind of the question. That's why I never really bet these ridiculous lines that are so high for an obvious reason. I'm tempted to take Ohio State, but again, they could win the game by 35 and we lose the bet.
Yeah, and I think you and I are kind of on the same page. Ohio State is not even in the same universe as Tulane when it comes to playing football. But Tulane's going to go out, they're going to try, but they could. What did you say the spread was? 45.
35.5. 45 that'd be interesting. 35.5. Yeah, it's only 35.5.
It could be 35-0 at halftime.
Right.
Do we dare have two locks of the? Well, you didn't lock it in.
No, I'm not going to. I won't.
And you're not going to.
No.
The old man though, he throws some locks out on his own for people.
That's true.
You know what though, Kevin? Urban Meyer's going to be back on the sideline.
That's true.
Urban Meyer's going to be back on the sideline. They didn't move up after beating TCU. I think Ohio State beats Tulane by more than 35. I think they beat them by more than 35 because right now Urban Smith. My gosh. Oh, see, I'm getting all discombobulated over here. Urban Meyer has got a team. He's got to be watching, going, I've got a quarterback, I've got a defensive line. Now I've got to move up in the rankings. I know I'm number 4. We just got to take care of business. I thought they should have moved up last week with their win over TCU. They didn't move up. We all know that the AP is all a prom. It's all a high school dance. It's all about all the fluff. I think you're going to see Urban Meyer run the score up, and not intentionally. But I don't think he's going to call the dogs back like we talked about last week. There's ways that you can beat a team without embarrassing them. But I think all that Urban Meyer has been through, with everything that went on at Ohio State, with them not moving up in the poll last week after getting a quality win, I think you see Ohio State drop 65. And I don't think Tulane scores. This could be 65-0, Kevin. I'm locking it. I just think with all of the I guess I'll call them intangibles that are out there, all of the things that are like little storylines, I think you're going to have Ohio State, and you got Urban Meyer on the sideline. The kids are going to be excited to play. I mean, that team backed him 100%, so here you go. I feel bad if I'm Tulane. I think this game gets out of hand by halftime. Like I said, they could cover the spread by halftime. And the second half, I don't think Urban Meyer calls the dogs off. I think he keeps going because it now comes down to we've got to impress the voters. How do you impress the voters, Kevin? You know this. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's right. You score points. And you score as many darn points as you can. And I think that's what Urban Meyer does. That's all I got. I'm locking it. I lock Ohio State over Tulane.
Fair enough. I completely understand where you're coming from. I also think after traveling to Texas and playing TCU in a tough game that you could see a little let up because you are at home comfortably against Tulane. You're obviously going to kill them. That's my only other hesitation here. So I'm not locking it, but they will kill Tulane. It's just by a matter of how much. Indiana hosts Michigan State, and I was very curious on this one because, like we've said, Indiana has taken care of business. They have looked fine against below-average competition. They're hosting Michigan State. Michigan State has not looked good. Michigan State is coming off a bye, though. So I think that D'Antonio is going to have his kids ready to play, even though it's on the road. It's also a night game. This game will be watched. It's a night game, and you're coming off a bye, and I really like Michigan State in this position. Michigan State's only favored by 4.5. So I'm willing to lock that Michigan State wins by at least 5 points here because I'm trusting D'Antonio off a bye week to really get his kids that are more talented than Indiana's to play like it, just like they were a year ago. And I don't think anything's changed there. You bring back all the same guys, basically. Michigan State shouldn't win this game by a touchdown, honestly. And so if they did, they would win this game and win with the spread with giving up 4.5 points. So I'm willing to lock it in if you are.
I got hesitations because of the way they played. I know they have a bye and they're coming off a bye, but, man, this team has not got out of the gate quick. And remember what we said? I was kind of joking. Are we going to hear the Fire D'Antonio chant? If they lose to Indiana, there's going to be more than chants. Yeah. There's going to be banners made. There's going to be billboards put up. Fire D'Antonio. Fire D'Antonio! The thing is, they're going on the road, Kevin. And I know it's 4.5. It's not a ton, but you've got to score a touchdown. Well, you don't necessarily have to win by a touchdown. You can win by 5. You could win 35-30. It just, I'm not willing to lock this because the old man has reservations about how Michigan State has played. They've struggled. It doesn't look like they've put things together. And again, I know they have a bye, but also that extended bye, or not an extended bye, the extended week off. When you're playing bad, you normally want to get back on the field and play. So they're going to have to correct things on the fly. And what I mean by correct things is in a game situation. So it might look all good and well in practice, but they've got to put it into a game. And like you said, Indiana's done what they had to do against lesser opponents. Should Michigan State win, Kevin? Yeah. And if we were talking about this game before the season started, I would say Michigan State wins by 21. But now it's funny how the tide changes after a couple weeks.
Yep.
I still think D'Antonio is a good coach. I think Michigan State's a good team. But they've been way too inconsistent and disappointing to me in the first couple of weeks for me to have any confidence that they can go to Indiana and cover the spread. I'm not doing it. I will not put my monopoly money on Michigan State with the points. Indiana is going to be excited about playing in prime time. We've talked about this. Indiana should not win the game. Could they win the game? If Michigan State lets them hang around like they have for every other team that they've played, Indiana could pull off an upset. But I think Michigan State wins the game, but I don't think they win by 4.5. I think it's a field goal or a late touchdown because they're down by 6. I think Michigan State wins by less than 4.
Yeah, and 4.5 is kind of key, too. There's a lot of, 28-24, 31-27. I mean, there's a lot of those. So 4.5 is a lot more different than 3.5. It really is. So I hear what you're saying. I think Michigan State bounces back, and they look like a top 25 team that they should be. So I'm locking it. Troy is not. Troy is locking Ohio State minus 35.5. I am not. So you got some individual locks here. and we both like Minnesota to get 3 points against Maryland on the road because we like Minnesota and their consistency. The last game is also a night game. I think it's on Fox. It's either Fox or ABC. I think it's Fox. Iowa hosts Wisconsin. And do you want to guess? I'll let you guess the line on this game, Troy. Iowa is hosting Wisconsin Saturday Night Football.
Wisconsin minus 3.5.
Woo! Look at you. That's perfect. I mean, I wish we had a little symbol, ding, 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 whatever it is.
I could put it in when I edit the show. I could put in some party music. And okay. I will tell you, folks, I did not look at any line. I looked at none.
It's the first time ever. Troy and I have done talked football shows for 3-4 years. It seems like now he's never gotten it spot on, directly perfect. That's hard to do. So, hats off to you there, Troy. Yeah, well, Wisconsin minus 3.5.
Yeah, basic. Well, I mean, you look at it, and 3.5 points against Iowa at Iowa. Whew. You know what I was going to do, Kevin? They're going to put 8 guys in the box. Can Wisconsin run the ball? Because Hornibrook's not going to make a play. And if you notice, I'm maybe using some reverse psychology on this show. Maybe Hornibrook will go out and actually throw for 300 yards. Maybe. Maybe. Come on, give me some hope. I'm a Badgers fan, Kevin.
Sorry.
Here's my thing. I'm not locking this game. Do I want Wisconsin to win? Yes. But now I've got some major concerns. Major concerns about this team. Do I think they can still win their division? Yes. And I shouldn't. And I'm not overreacting because I told you my concerns in the preview about the defense. It should be good, but it's young. And BYU is having their win. Iowa's offense isn't that great, but it's comparable to a BYU offense.
Yeah.
And if Iowa can control the clock, keep Taylor on the sideline, and wear down a young. Oh, go ahead.
That's my only note on this game is that Iowa's defense has looked pretty good. That not that Iowa's played a bunch of great teams, but they held Iowa State to 3 points, and Iowa State's not a joke.
No, Iowa State is a team that likes to go, and they're not like. Don't take it the wrong way when I say fast tempo. Like people see fast tempo, they think of Chip Kelly and snapping the ball 10 seconds into the play clock. But Iowa State likes to get at it. They like to take chances. They like to go for big plays. They're fast, and offensively, that's where they build their team around. It's usually not their defense. Iowa State is usually built on offense, and so that was we didn't talk about it a whole lot, but whole Iowa State to 3 points, that's a pretty good game, and that's my concern here with this game, Kevin. If Iowa's defense can shut down Taylor, but then their offense, if their offense wins the battle of time possession, which Wisconsin tries to do, you could see an Iowa win. You could see Wisconsin lose the game outright if Iowa controls the clock. And if their defense shuts down Taylor and puts the ball in Hornibrook's hands, if you're an Iowa Hawkeye fan, you got to be pretty excited about that. You got to like your chances. And it's at Kinnick Stadium. It's always a tough place to play, Kevin. I like Wisconsin in this game because I think Paul Chryst gets these guys ready to play. I hope Hornibrook can make one play. I just hope he can make one play. That's it. I'm not even asking for 2. I'm asking for 1. But I think Wisconsin wins.
I hear you. I think it's going to be a one-score game. It's Saturday Night Football at Kinnick Stadium. Ohio State knows how difficult that stadium can be. They lost by 30 there last year. So Iowa can obviously win this game against Wisconsin. And to me, I'm picking Iowa to win. I'm not going to lock it. Obviously, we wouldn't agree anyway. But I think Iowa wins the game at home. I think they're feeling confident. I think it's a night game at home. I think they're absolutely going to care. They're going to feel confident because they know Wisconsin's not spectacular. They're not just going to play with their head between their legs. They're going to care, and they're going to believe just like BYU did. I think Iowa wins the game. I think it's going to be very close, and if Hornibrook makes that one extra play, Wisconsin could win too, obviously.
Yeah, he just needs to make one.
Yeah.
He just needs to make one play.
That's it. That's all the Week 4 games. That's all we got. We're both locking Minnesota +3 at Maryland. And then we also have a couple individual locks, but we're putting our 0-2 record to the test, Drew. So basically, bet Maryland.
I'm almost on this little kick that I hope that we don't get any right all year.
Yeah, right.
Kind of like the Cleveland Browns don't win a game all year.
Yep.
Could be. Make sure you put the individual locks in the write-up this time, youngster, just so the fans can. And I want to fill the fans in. If you've listened this long, and I know that some people do, some people listen this long, we're adding a new segment to the show next week, youngster. Pretty excited about it. It's going to be called Listeners' Likes. And what we've done is we do the show, and then it is aired via the Grueling Truth. You know, Kevin, that I go out, though, and I put it all out on social media. I put it out on Twitter. I put it out on Facebook. I put it out on LinkedIn. And so what we're going to do is we're going to select listeners that like the show. And it can be on LinkedIn. It can be on Facebook. It can be on Twitter. If you like the show, we're going to extend an invitation to come on our Listener Likes segment. I'm pretty excited about it, Kevin. I told you I've reached out to 2 of the listeners, and 2 have accepted. So that means the next 2 weeks we've already got guests lined up. I'm excited to talk to these people about college football, kind of what they think of the show. I mean, they're liking the show on social media, so they've got to listen. I don't usually like something I don't listen to, so I'm excited to get the listeners involved. So I'm actually pretty hyped up about it. How about you?
Well, my wife just said in the background here, she's like, "Pick me. I know nothing." So maybe we have 3 guests lined up.
Tell Mrs. Youngster that she needs to go on Facebook and like the show.
Okay.
That's what you got to tell her, and you got to call her Mrs. Youngster.
I will. I shall. The Mrs. Youngster. Oh boy.
Oh, this show is going nowhere fast, my friend. We need to get off the air. Hope you enjoyed the show today, everybody. For the youngster, I am the old man. Make sure you find us on Twitter, or show handle at Youngster Old Man. The youngster is at KidCunny, KIDCUNI, and I am the old man at Troy Robert 967. Hope you enjoyed the show today. We'll get back at you next week via the Grueling Truth. Have a good night, everyone.